Welcome to Hope's Homemade Kitchen. If you haven't joined me before, I'm Hope, and each week on my channel, I do step-by-step recipes that you could make in your own home. Today we're making orange cake. This is a beautiful citrus cake made with navel oranges, and you can actually have it for dessert or breakfast. Let's get started and I'll show you the ingredients. Our ingredients for the orange cake are all-purpose flour, granulated sugar, the zest and juice of 3 oranges, vanilla, salt, baking powder, vegetable oil, I'm using canola oil, 3 eggs, and for the glaze we'll be using a half of an orange, both the zest and the juice, and some powdered sugar. To get started, I've preheated my oven to 350 degrees. And now I am buttering an 8 by 4 inch loaf pan. Now this is actually an 8.5 by 4.5 inch loaf pan. You could probably also use a 9 by 5, but the height of the cake and the baking time would probably be less. Okay, the first step in a large bowl is to whisk together the flour, baking powder, and salt. Now we have 2.5 cups of flour. So as we've done before, when we measure our flour, we fluff it up and then scoop and level. Okay, so that's 2.5 cups, 3/4 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 and 1/4, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Okay, I'm going to whisk that together. Okay, in another bowl, I've washed these oranges, and I need 2 tablespoons of orange zest. So the recipe I have indicates that is about 3 oranges. So we'll go through and just get the orange part of the orange, and I'm using a microplane zester, which is the tool that you need for this. And we're also going to go through a little bit of a conditioning of the sugar. So we're going to rub the zest with the sugar so it extracts out the oils of that zest and just gives it much more flavor. Now I'm using the recipe that Preppy Kitchen uses. If you'd like to look up that site. So I'm going by that recipe. I may be changing a couple of things in there, but otherwise it's pretty much the same recipe. And I'll indicate all of the ingredients and all the instructions in the description box below. Okay, we need 1 cup of sugar. I'll be adding right to that orange zest. Okay, what we're going to do is just take clean hands and rub that sugar and orange zest together. This extracts out the oils from the orange zest and just gives it a really potent flavor. So we're really going to do that until it's a light orange color. So I would say just a minute or 2. You can see how it's changing color. See that? That's a very light orange color. Okay, I need the juice from 3 oranges. Okay, I do not have a citrus juicer, but what I'm going to do is use a fork and squeeze all of that juice into a strainer here. And that's pretty much using all of the orange except for that white pith. which tends to be very bitter. So the actual measurement would be about 3/4 cup of orange juice, which I think we're going to get here with these 3 oranges. Okay, I got there with 2.5 oranges. So 3/4 of a cup. Okay, I'm going to add to the sugar and the zest, I'll add 3/4 cup of orange juice that we just squeezed, 1 cup of vegetable oil, and I'm using canola oil, which is just fine, 3 eggs, and a full tablespoon of vanilla. I'm going to whisk that up. The good thing about this is you don't need a mixer or even a hand blender. You can use a whisk. Okay, now I'm going to take my dry ingredient bowl. I'm going to pour this into the flour mixture. So we'll whisk that together just until it's combined. Okay, we'll take our cake pan that we've greased with butter. Now the next step is to put it into a 350-degree oven where it will bake for 1 hour and 10 minutes or until it passes the toothpick test. So we'll do that and then we'll be back after it's baked. Okay, while the cake is in the oven, I'm going to go ahead and mix up the glaze. So I'll need 1 cup of powdered sugar. And we'll need the zest of 1/2 an orange and the juice. Go ahead and zest it right in there. And then we'll squeeze 1/2 an orange, all the juice of 1/2 an orange right into the bowl. So just whisk that together. Now if it's super, super thin, you might want to add just a little bit more sugar. We'll drizzle that over the cooled cake. Okay, this is a tall cake. I had it in the oven for 70 minutes and I did the toothpick test and it was still not done in the middle, so I gave it another 10 minutes. Did the toothpick test again, and it is now done. Now it needs to sit for 15 minutes in the pan, and then we'll turn it out and cool it completely on a rack. Okay, the cake has cooled in the pan for 15 minutes. We're going to turn it out onto the baking rack. Perfect no stick. And we'll let it cool a little more before we drizzle the orange glaze on it. Okay, so the cake has cooled now. It's not completely cool, it's still a little warm, but I think it's perfect now to put on the glaze. Now I have seen some recipes where as soon as you take this cake out of the oven, you have like a simple syrup with some Grand Marnier in it and orange juice, and you pour it on the cake while it's hot and let it seep in. That would be amazing. So that's another way that you could make this cake. I didn't have any Grand Marnier, so we are simply going to drizzle this orange glaze. And it smells so good. There's just a very intense orange smell. And you'll need to get your glaze just about like this, the drizzling consistency. I had to play with it a little bit, added a little more sugar. I actually added just like a tiny pinch of salt and some vanilla as well. But you don't have to do that. And icing it on a rack just makes cleanup a little bit easier, and then you don't have a pool of icing on your plate. Okay, let's give this orange cake a taste test. That is a very moist cake. I was expecting more orange flavor, but sometimes maybe it has to do with your oranges. This is a really very good cake. It's not as sweet as what I was expecting it to be. And that's probably not a bad thing. I think next time I would use the method of right after it comes out of the oven, I would soak it in the simple syrup Grand Marnier mixture and then let it cool and then glaze it with this orange glaze. But this is a beautiful cake. If you love oranges, you're really going to love this one. So take a look at the Preppy Kitchen orange cake recipe. He has some shorts out there as well as some long form videos. I used his recipe and I'll link it down below, or I'll actually write out the recipe down below. So thank you again for joining me today on Hope's Homemade Kitchen. I hope you enjoyed this orange cake. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. We'll see you next time.